I'll try to make it a walk-off field goal for somebody to win for you every time, but that's a lot of pressure.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Bando's Breakdowns, episode 74. My name is Zain Bando. Thank you so much for joining me. It is Friday, January 23rd, a little bit after 3 p.m. Eastern. So thanks again for checking me out. And for those of you listening over on the audio only side, hope you all are having a good week as you begin your Friday. So whenever you may be listening to this, that's fantastic, as I try to make this as easily digestible of a show as I possibly can. Before we get into any of the particulars on today's program, let's get into some of the usual, beat around the bush type stuff that we normally do. So first off, please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe. To do so, youtube.com/ETP Network. Of course, you can follow the show on social media at Bando's Breakdown. Shout out to everyone who has interacted with some of our reels as of late. Very much appreciated that you guys have done so. It really does help me out, because the more that I am in your algorithm, the more that tells me that you like the kinds of content I'm putting out. You can listen to Bando's Breakdowns wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, for those of you who have never heard of me before, my name is Zain Bando. I'm a sports journalist and an ETV Network co-host. You can find my work a lot of different places, including Sporting News, Field Level Media, MMA Knockout on Sports Illustrated, Ohio State on Sports Illustrated, as well as Dallas Wings on Sports Illustrated, and many other syndication platforms. So if you know me from this show and you want to read me, now you know where to read me. If it's the inverse of that, welcome to Bando's Breakdowns for the first time, wherever you may be listening, as I know it's a new year and people like to kind of filter and cycle through their podcasts of choice. So shout out to all of you guys who are tuning in. All right, with that out of the way, that is all of the housekeeping items and particulars. Let's get into the show today, and let's start with Zain's overview, what we're going to be talking about. I haven't really done this in quite a bit. We have to get back to doing this because I jump into topics pretty quickly into the show, and I want to talk about first what we will be discussing on today's program. So Zain's overview, it's very heavy on the NFL. It's also very heavy on Indiana winning the national title. We get into UFC 324, my pick for Paddy Pimblett versus Justin Gaethje. I'm also going to explain to you guys how to watch the event this weekend and moving forward, as the UFC is on a new broadcast deal in the United States. It is no longer with ESPN. So I'm going to explain what that is all about and all you guys need to do in order to make your UFC viewing experience as easily accessible as possible. So we'll get into that. We'll also get into a few other smaller items as well. And of course, stay tuned, because at the end of the show, we will have that very special guest that I've been teasing, the one that was very instrumental in making the Liberty Mutual Music City Bowl happen. So you will want to stay tuned for the end of the show for that special guest as well. And I will reveal who that special guest is going to be at the very end of the program before getting into the interview. So let's get started with everything. So to begin, Indiana completes the 2025-26 college football season by winning the national championship over the Miami Hurricanes 27-21, highlighted by Fernando Mendoza's fourth down run to the end zone to have his true Heisman moment, which eventually led to Indiana winning the game with a Jamari Sharp interception to close out the first 16-0 season since 1894 Yale. There's obviously been some undefeated teams in the past, but never one to go 16-0, obviously since the year I just mentioned. So let's talk about how historic this is. So Indiana becomes the third straight Big Ten team to win a national championship. The other two were the Ohio State Buckeyes this past season under Ryan Day. And then, of course, the year before was J.J. McCarthy's final college football game. Of course, that was against Washington, and that is what led Jim Harbaugh to ride off into the sunset and take over as the new coach of the LA Chargers at the time. So huge deal. Obviously, Indiana was clearly the best team all year. People just didn't realize it until mid October after they beat a lowly Penn State team on the last play of the game. And I'm just going to be very honest. I was one of those Indiana non believers as well. But what made me a believer was after they pummeled Illinois in Bloomington on my birthday, 63-10. I thought this was going to be the game where Illinois was going to arrive, and I thought it was going to be close, regardless of who won. Indiana clobbered Illinois, and that was a very good Illinois team that had a lot of talent on that. Luke Altmaier, Gabe Akis, obviously, a pretty good rushing attack. Unfortunately, a few things didn't go Illinois' way. I'm pretty sure we had an ejection in that game as well, which was a horrible ejection, and that kind of opened the floodgates for the eventual loss. And of course, at the time, Illinois was number 19, or excuse me, number 9 in the country. Indiana was number 19. And that's kind of what turned the tables. Obviously, Illinois did end up finishing the year with a 9-win season, but of course, this was a jumping off point for Indiana to essentially cruise all the way to the Big Ten championship game undefeated. And once they knocked off Ohio State, I knew they were legit. I didn't think Indiana would win the game. I thought it would be a great game, though. I thought it'd be really close. Obviously, Indiana won, and then of course in the postseason they just dominated. Fernando Mendoza going into the national championship game had more touchdown passes than incompletions, which was absurd. Obviously, that changed playing Miami. He did have a couple incompletions, and in fact, Indiana was not really playing all that well until the fourth quarter when things finally started to turn. Looked like Mark Fletcher had brought Miami back into the game, and of course, Indiana was able to seal the win there at the very end as Miami was trying to drive the length of the field to potentially win the game by a point, but of course that did not happen. So Kurt Cignetti is now 27-2 as Indiana's coach. He got a massive contract extension about mid-season or so. That obviously is staying intact because he has said now on a couple of occasions that he is quote unquote not an NFL guy. So that means that he's staying in Indiana for as long as he can. That's number one. And number two, I think Indiana's reloading because Cignetti admitted it. He's like, I'm taking a day off. I'm taking Tuesday off, which at the time that we're recording this was yesterday, which means at the time that we're recording this today, and at the time that you guys are hearing this or watching this, it's been a couple days since he said that message. So it's clear that he is very focused on ensuring that Indiana is set up for future success. And I think that that's really awesome. And I think it goes to show that the culture buy-in overall to the program is real. It's not overblown, and nor is it for the cameras. It's real. It's legit. It's serious. And now he's realizing that some of those guys who are going to the NFL, they can finally let loose, realize they were a part of one of the best teams of all time, and move on to the next phase of their career. And I think that that's really awesome. And I think he realizes it. It's a true developmental program that's built on hard work, dedication, and persistence. But also, Cignetti knows that in order to win, you got to spend money in this day and age. And they've done that and then some. They're bringing in some major transfers. Josh Hoover and Nick Marsh, obviously being the two big ones for the Hoosiers going into 2026. So Indiana may not go undefeated, but they're going to be pretty darn close to doing so. I don't think next year's team is better than the team that just won the title, but they're clearly in a position to where they're going to win, and they're going to win now, and they're going to win a lot. And it's going to also be clear that for recruits coming in, that they're going to have to earn their spot because these guys can be 3, 4, and 5-star recruits, whatever stars they are. And ultimately, in Cignetti's program, it doesn't matter. If you play hard, tough physical football for him, he will reward you and then some. And I think that that's interesting. And I think overall, it's one of those where it has to be to be bought in for. And I think that's what Cignetti has been able to do. For Miami, this is a tough loss. Obviously, it's an end of an era for several guys, but I think Cristobal is going to be okay. I think he's shown that he's overcome his November hangovers. There was the narrative around him before making the playoff that he would always find a way to screw up his team's season in mid-November. Obviously, they made the playoff, went to the national title game, and fully validated that their win, or its win rather, over Notre Dame meant something at the beginning of the year, because a lot of people thought, oh, Notre Dame was screwed out of the playoff. Look at what Miami did. They made it to the national title game and only lost by 6 to now the best team in the nation. So I think it was a good year for Miami, and it was obviously a stunning playoff run, huge upset over the defending national champions to get to the semifinal against Ole Miss, and obviously it beat a very good Ole Miss team to go to the championship game. So there's a lot to be excited about. But that's going to do it, though, for the college football season as a whole. Just to give you guys some context here, I won 27 games during the bowl season. I won, I think it was 60 plus games on Forever Power 5. And for my national championship prediction at the beginning of the playoff was incorrect, but I did have Indiana going to the title game and losing, so that counts for something. I just had them losing to the wrong team because that team was Ohio State. I thought we'd see a Big Ten championship rematch, but I was wrong. And speaking of those, Indiana will be playing Ohio State mid-October this fall in Bloomington, and what is already going to be one of the hottest tickets in the entire sport as hotels continue to skyrocket for that weekend in Bloomington. So if you don't have a hotel, get on that soon and go from there. All right, let's talk about the NFL playoffs. We're down to the final 4 teams left in the field of the postseason, the final 4 teams that will determine who will go to Super Bowl 60 in Santa Clara, California. And I guess let's get into my 2 survivor picks before previewing the championship games. So NFL Survivor, the top 2 games, there's only 2 games to pick before the Super Bowl. Let's give you those picks now. It's my Super Bowl prediction that we had at the beginning of the playoffs, still remaining alive. We like New England over Denver and Jared Stidham, and we like the Rams to outlast the Seattle Seahawks on the road to go to the Super Bowl. So we're going to have an NFC West team in the Super Bowl potentially, but it isn't San Francisco. And we'll get into that more in just a little bit. But let's move this down there and let's talk about the AFC Championship game now. So New England -5.5 versus the Denver Broncos. Over under is 42.5. This game would have been a lot more exciting if Bo Nix was playing, but Bo Nix is done for the season. So the Broncos have to rely on Jared Stidham, who does not really have a ton of big game NFL experience. Meanwhile, Drake May is playing out of his mind. He won't win MVP, but he certainly will be in consideration in the years to come. He's one of the best quarterbacks in football, period. I like where this line is, and I love New England. I just think a loss like Bo Nix and what he's able to do strategically, the way he's able to lead his team and the way he knows the offense, I just think it's too much to overcome. If you're the Broncos, and you're going to have to rely on your defense to get after Drake May. If they can do that, it'll be a great game. But I just think Vegas knows that New England is the better team, and it also knows that Stidham is, in a position to where he has to start because the Broncos have no other choice. And I'm not trying to make it conspiratorial towards the NFL, but this is no disrespect to Jared Stidham either, but Jared Stidham in the Super Bowl does not have the same ring that Drake May does. And I think the NFL realizes it, and I know they can't root for certain teams to win, but I think it would certainly help their cause if the Patriots won because of the star power New England has on both sides of the ball. I mean, they're a dominant team, and overall they're just good. They're a good football team, and they're very consistent. And they did so defensively this past week against the Houston Texans team that tried to win but failed in the second half when it mattered most. And they're still I think the only team, or one of the only teams in the modern era to never make the conference championship game, or go to the Super Bowl. So that makes it kind of tougher there. And obviously Denver, this was a great year for them. Nobody expected them to go this far given the previous years that Denver had. It's been a long time since they've gone to the Super Bowl, but it should be a good game. I just think New England is a little bit better. So give me New England to cover this number. Also, and also, I think the over under is a huge question mark here. So I'm not going to touch it. I just think New England -5.5 is the play, and I think it's one of those where if May can control the time of possession, and defensively, if they can get a few stops on Stidham, they'll be fine and they'll win by at least probably 10 to 14 points. So give me the Patriots there in the AFC Championship. In the NFC Championship, the Seattle Seahawks, after a dominant win over the San Francisco 49ers, host a trilogy against the LA Rams, with the winner going to the Super Bowl. And because I can say it now, an NFC West team could win the Super Bowl, and it isn't the 49ers, because the 49ers were not only eliminated last week, but the Super Bowl is being held at Levi Stadium. So, therefore, it makes all the sense in the world as to why this game has the stakes that it does. But back to the game, though, I really like the Rams. Matt Stafford has just seemed to find a way these last several weeks, and defensively, they've come up huge when they needed to. They picked off Caleb Williams a couple of times this past week, and I just think the Rams overall are a very good football team right now, and they just have a lot of star power, and their rushing attack is really good. When Kyron Williams gets going, he's a beast. And of course, when Puka Nacua is in sync with Stafford, I mean, LA is just simply a different offense. And I'm not saying Seattle can't beat that. Seattle is a very good team. But again, Sam Darnold is still kind of Sam Darnold, to where he's playing well, but there's some times where he doesn't fully live up to expectations. And this is the biggest game that he will ever play in to date. And I just think the pressure is going to get to him. So give me the Rams to at least cover this number. And I hope they win, because it would at least give my Super Bowl pick of the two teams a little bit of life. So give me the Rams to cover. And in regards to the over-under, I see this game getting a little loose. So give me the over in the NFC Championship game. And hopefully my pick of the Rams Patriots is true. Let's go over my record overall for the NFL. So this past week, we were 3-1 straight up, 2-2 against the spread. This past week, we're now 6-4 against the spread in the NFL playoffs, and 44-19 in regards to the Bando's breakdowns, Bando's blitz season, if you will, if you count last year as well. And we are 181-100 straight up for the NFL season, with 2 games to go. So or 3 games to go if you count the Super Bowl. So we have a chance to at least finish with 184 wins if all of those go according to plan. And just really quick on the Bears and the Rams, this was a great game. This was one of those games where it's heartbreaking if you're a Bears fan, because the Bears were so close to winning the game. But ultimately, as I said in the comments of the ETB Lounge the other night, multiple turnovers at home are inexcusable, regardless of what the weather is. And I'm convinced, and I don't know this for sure, but I'm convinced if the interception at the end or in overtime doesn't get thrown by Williams, the Bears have a shot to win. Now, do they actually win? I'm not sure, but that drive was looking really good. But that doesn't take away anything from what the Rams did. The Rams were the better football team. Stafford is the veteran quarterback. He's simply there to win. He knows that his time is slowly but surely coming to an end. And he also knows that, when the Rams are good and when he's consistent, they always play well. And I think that's really important to note too, because He's one of those quarterbacks that's been around a long time and he knows what it takes to win the Super Bowl. And the Bears are still a young team with a second year, soon to be third year quarterback that still has a little bit more to go. The Bears may be 2 years away, but at the very least, they are competing for not just conference championships, but now the Bears have proven that they can win playoff games and they can do so at a high level. Again, there was another handshake incident between Sean McVay and Ben Johnson, which I'd rather not get into because A, it's too old news, and B, you got to let the past be the past at this point. You got to move into the offseason knowing that you are, you are at a level to where, yes, you can compete, but the major question, of course, is when the Bears do decide that they want to continue to compete, how are they going to look back on this as more of a learning experience than anything else? Because if they don't do it and they let it spiral, it could be really bad news for the Bears moving forward, which is what the Bears don't want. But given past history tells you that the Bears won't make the playoffs next season. But I'm inclined to believe that given who the Bears still have and who the Bears are more than likely going to be bringing in through free agency and the draft, that I don't want it to be true. But let's get off the football soapbox for now. Let's get into the UFC. Dana White confirms to TMZ Sports that he will not retire as CEO of the UFC, at least not yet. He signed a 7-year extension. I think he announced it the middle of 2025. So that's good news. And in this TMZ interview with Michael J. Babcock, he actually was a little bit more excited. He was openly talking about the fights, for Saturday night, which we'll get into here in a minute. And he was talking about, how excited he is for this new Paramount deal. So I think it kind of validates what I said this past week, to where he is happy when the narrative about him or about his business is going well and everything is status quo. He doesn't like being pushed for tough questions, and it is what it is. But I think for those that know the nature of the business, they know that that's just kind of what comes with the territory. And I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong, but what I am saying is that it is, and people have to realize that it is. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't recognize. And as I alluded to last week, I mean, he could have sold out a decade ago in July of 2016. He chose not to do that, and he's still alive and kicking as the CEO who's running multiple businesses. And he even admitted he's running, another company called Thrill One, which has a lot of other businesses on top of it: SLS Skate League, Nitro Circus, Power Slap, and a few others. And it's clear, man. It's clear that he's got his hand in the cookie jar of a lot of things, but I think he knows that the UFC is still the driving engine, and he knows that, he's got a potential star on his hands if Paddy Pimblett can knock out Justin Gaethje. And speaking of, let's talk about that fight. Main event: Justin Gaethje, Paddy Pimblett for the UFC interim lightweight championship. Of course, the winner of this is more than likely going to fight Ilia Topuria. So that's very exciting. And I think this is Paddy Pimblett's fight to lose. I think Paddy Pimblett is a beast. Paddy Pimblett is undefeated in the UFC for a reason. As Dana White alluded to, every single fight that Paddy Pimblett has ever had has had a performance bonus attached to it. And of course, Justin Gaethje is, one of the most exciting fighters in the sport. It's being reported in recent days that he wants to retire in 2027. So he's going off on the assumption that he will beat Paddy Pimblett. But I just think Pimblett's too much, man. He's got so much star power around him. He's one of the biggest names in the sport, even without a title. The entire country of England loves him. Justin Gaethje, he's a great fighter out of Arizona, but he's one of those guys that's kind of the old guard a little bit. He's fought for a title before. He's been an interim champion before. But I just don't think he's the same version of what he was 5 years ago. And I think the division has kind of passed him by a little bit, and Pimblett still has many more years to go. So I really like Pimblett in this spot. I think he wins in the first round. I think it's a devastating knockout. I think he has a call out of Topuria. If they can get that fight done for the summer, it'll be one of the biggest fights of the year that the UFC can currently make. given that the UFC is in a bit of a difficult position in regards to who they can match up for some of these title fights, given who's available and stuff, and given who the UFC ultimately wants on the White House card. So that's going to be interesting. And I did explain that I would tell you guys how to watch the card. So it's pretty simple. If you have Paramount Plus, whether it's the one with ads or the one without, you can watch the card in full with one subscription. Pretty sure it's about $13 a month if you do the monthly subscription, and no extra fees. So no pay-per-view in the United States, no pay-per-view in Latin America, and no pay-per-view in Brazil. So you literally just follow the steps that I laid out, and you'll be able to get this fight. You'll be able to get UFC 325 next week, and you'll be able to get every UFC event till the end of the year, which is about 42 to 43 live events a year for the same price as one UFC pay-per-view. So I think it's a bargain. And even if you don't want another subscription service, it will lead you guys to potentially cancel ESPN Plus for those of you who maybe don't care about other promotions and that sort of thing. So that's how you watch the fight. There's a new start time. The main card is at 9 p.m. Eastern now instead of 10 p.m. Eastern, so it's an hour earlier. And the prelims are also an hour earlier. So say it's 6 p.m. Eastern, it'll be 5 p.m. Eastern, I'm pretty sure, moving forward. So just stay tuned to the UFC website based on what card it is to find out what time it starts. But earlier start times now, which means people can go to bed an hour earlier than what they would have, or still go enjoy the rest of their night and go out and hang out and do all that sort of thing. But that's how you watch the UFC moving forward, and that's going to be the case moving forward for about the next 7 years, so get used to it. One thing I saw, a viral video down in National Championship game. Before it, Dana White sent out or gave out a tip to a bunch of drivers. I think it was valet parking guys and a few others. Super, super cool gesture. He does that all the time. He just doesn't talk about it. He's very generous with his tips, whether that's the example I just gave or the casinos. So anytime that people want to criticize that he doesn't do that sort of stuff, there's video evidence of it. It's everywhere. It's more so in real form at this point, but it's out there, and I just thought it was cool, so I figured I'd mention it. Then finally, Zinger, before we get into the transition phase of the show. The Big Ten SEC debate, very, very interesting stuff. And yeah, I mean, really, the debate is which conference has over exceeded expectations in college football. And right now, I think the Big Ten takes the cake over the SEC. I really do. I think it's one of those debates where you got to look at the body of work, and the body of work is simple. The Big Ten has won the last 3 national titles. The SEC has come up short the last several years. They've had teams make deep runs, but it hasn't been since Georgia beat TCU that the SEC was really on top. And I think that's really important to note because the sport's different now. The evolution of NIL is much different, and now really any team can be dominant regardless of what conference it is. And I think that's notable. And I think just based on facts, the Big Ten right now, to me, has the upper hand over the SEC, and we will see how far this will go. So we shall see what happens. All right, so we get to the portion of the show that I am very excited to reveal. So in the next few minutes or so, you will hear an exclusive interview from Scott Ramsey, the president and CEO of Liberty Mutual Music City Bowl. Thank you so much to Scott for his time. This was a wonderful, wonderful interview. Talked about a lot of stuff. Asked him about Indiana winning the national title, what his current feeling is on how NIL is changing the impact of college football, the Music City Bowl itself, which saw Illinois beat Tennessee to clinch its final win of the season, of course. Just kind of what the selection process was like for these two teams, kind of how they came to a consensus, and just kind of his overall feeling of the future of the bowl game and what he hopes to see from it in the future. And just overall kind of his thoughts on the general landscape of the sport. So I hope you guys enjoy this interview. Without further ado, we're going to transition now to my conversation with Scott Ramsey, which was a total blast. And thank you to everyone involved who set this up. He was a great guest, and I'm hoping to have more guests like him on here moving forward as we're trying to make this not just a show about the stuff I like, but also a place where you can get exclusive interviews that you can't find anywhere else. So stay tuned for that on the other side of this, and we will be back to wrap up the show. So thanks, everyone. Welcome back, everyone. This is a Bando's Breakdowns exclusive. I'm happy to be joined by the president and CEO of the Liberty Mutual Music City Bowl, Scott Ramsey. Scott, how are you this morning as we're about a month past the Music City Bowl, and we've actually just finished up the conclusion of the college football season here within the last few days. So how are you?
Doing great. How are you? We're excited and looking forward to kind of what the future of the bowl is. But man, really excited about coming out of the first year with Liberty Mutual as our title sponsor, and we had over 5 million viewers and great attendance and a walk-off field goal to win the game. So we're really excited about 2025 and starting to work on 2026.
Well, that's awesome to hear, and that actually leads perfectly into my first question. What were your overall thoughts just on the Music City Bowl itself from the entire week of events that you guys had, and of course the game itself, which ended up being really awesome, and of course came down to the final play, which you could never ask for anything better than that, right?
That's right. I think we could have the final play determine the game every year. We'd be awful happy. But no, I think when you look at the non-CFP games like ourselves now, a chance to, if you can have 50,000 plus in the stands and over 5 million viewers, boy, that's a huge successful year right now, given kind of the state of this non-CFP games, which, has been, we've had to adjust a lot, over the last 5 years with the changes in college football, from the COVID to the expansion of conferences with the Pac-12 going away to obviously the transfer portal, to the expansion of paying players, to the 12-team playoff from a 14 playoff. So, I think our system in Nashville in particular, I think we've done a really good job of kind of adjusting to all those changes. And I thought this year, we kind of settled in and had a great event between two very substantial SEC and Big Ten programs, and a brand new title sponsor that was excited about that relationship with not only our city, but with the SEC and the Big Ten as well. So, we're very pleased with this year's results, and looking forward to kind of rolling our sleeves up and seeing what's ahead.
It's really awesome to hear, and I'm just kind of curious to sort of add to that. Once the game was announced and sort of the anticipation of the game started to kind of unfold throughout December, did you expect the Liberty Mutual Music City Bowl, out of all of the non-CFP games, to be one of the most highly anticipated? Because upon arriving in Nashville, it just seemed like the entire city was buzzing with energy for about 4 days in a row, and I wonder if you kind of noticed the same thing a little bit.
Yeah, we did. I think this was our 28th year, 27th game, because we had a cancellation there in COVID. But I think we've been blessed with a city that's really embraced the event. Certainly, this year Tennessee's got a big local fan base here, and Illinois is only 4.5 hours up the street. So, I think we had a chance to really bring in a lot of fans, so they came early, as we're easy to get to for those two fan bases, and created the environment you mentioned. And then I think our downtown has to take a lot of success in that, just because it's so compact. We can really kind of create a campus environment, and it's an atmosphere that is pretty unique. And from the standpoint of cities having the venue and hotels and entertainment district all within a walkable distance. So, I think that helps. But certainly the two fan bases came. We saw really very few opt-outs, which is unusual in today's world. And saw a great game on the field.
For sure, and just kind of moving right along, just the overall process of picking these two teams. Just sort of what was that like for you, and just sort of given that these two teams had never played each other in her program's history head to head. Can you just kind of talk about overall the process as to why Illinois and Tennessee were the two teams for this year's bowl game? Because the last few years, the Music City Bowl has been one of the most thrilling games on the calendar, and to get some sort of new faces in the bowl game, I thought, which really interesting. So kind of talk about that from your perspective, just as someone who oversees everything.
Yeah, the selection processes are different for the Big Ten and the SEC, and it certainly changed. As we mentioned, all the changes that have happened over the last 4 or 5 years, the selection process changed as well. And, on the Big Ten side, certainly, after the CFP on both sides of the ledger really kind of finalizes on that Sunday after championship games, you kind of zero in. But we kind of really kind of been tracking on Illinois. We'd had Iowa 2 of the last 3 years, and they were kind of in that mix along with probably Nebraska and Illinois. And, we just felt like first time to have Illinois here was a great fit. Their drivable fan base, 8-4. We just felt like it was a good fit this year. And then on the other side, we certainly had to wait some things out on the SEC side and see kind of where everything was going to fit. But again, with the teams that we'd had the last couple of years, like Missouri and so forth, we felt like the Tennessee-Illinois matchup was great. On the SEC side, they make more of an appointment to the pool of bowls that right below the Citrus Bowl. So we kind of felt like it was a good marriage this year, and it worked out.
For sure. And is the plan to get sort of newer teams in the Music City Bowl every year, or are you okay if every other year or so there is familiarity where a team is making a return trip, so to speak?
Man, I tell you, that's a good question. I don't know if we ever kind of think about that until kind of see how the season kind of progresses. I think
For sure.
we've had some return teams, and for really not really a strategic reason other than it just still kind of fit right, and the matchup fit right, and based on the other options and other selections. So I don't think we've ever shied away from kind of having every 3 or 4 years. Certainly with the SEC teams, we have a very regional base here. Fan bases are within a 4 or 5 hour drive or a really short flight. So I think we have a lot of options there. And we've done really well in the Big Ten under that regard. Purdue brought a lot of fans. Illinois brought a lot of fans. So, I think that just kind of creates a great environment, both in the city and then during the game for the atmosphere. So I think we've taken each year individually as it's kind of come.
It's really cool to hear, and just to see, I think, just overall, just the people who I think were interested in going to the game, either because they had never been to the Music City Bowl before. This was my first Music City Bowl for me personally, but also just to see the people who were already interested in the fact that it was two teams that weren't familiar with playing against one another, and just seeing how everything played out, I thought was really, really cool. So kind of my next question is you were kind of just talking about the landscape here a few minutes ago. What do you think the future of bowl games, particularly yours, is going to look like, just given the ever-changing landscape of the sport? And it's for the people who may think that bowl games may not matter the way that they used to. What would be your response to that? And how do you think bowl games can be enhanced, given that college football is just always changing year after year?
Yeah, it's a lot of questions there. I think where we sit today is certainly a little bit in a waiting game to see what the commissioners decide about the structure of the college football playoff here in 26. And then we're going to have to be somewhat reactive to that, being in the non-CFP, bowl system. So, I think we've run some scenarios that we think are, likely to happen, 2 or 3 scenarios. But, I think from Nashville's perspective, we feel pretty positive about college football from a couple aspects. One,
Okay.
we feel like we've got a city that's a great destination for sports and entertainment. We've got a downtown that really holds events really well. We're very compact, so we can really create that energy. And third, I think we've got a set of partners that really makes sense for us. The SEC, the Big Ten, and ESPN. We feel like is a great combination. What it looks like going forward, again, not sure. I think some of it's going to be dependent upon the expansion plans or non-expansion plans of the CFP decision. And we're just going to have to kind of, peel off of that and have some discussions. But we're pretty bullish on Nashville. We've got a new stadium coming that'll have a cover on it. So, we're really excited about continuing postseason college football here. But some of that decision will rely in the commissioner room.
For sure. And I guess that leads perfectly into my second to last question that I have for you. For those who may have never attended the Music City Bowl before, and if you had one selling point to sort of persuade someone to go to the game in 2026, regardless of who may be playing in it, what would be your biggest selling point reason and why?
Well, I hate to be repetitive, Zane, but in Nashville, I think we're a great, between Christmas and New Year's destination. Come have fun for 3 or 4 days or 2 days, whichever your schedule allows. You got the SEC Big Ten, the two powerhouse conferences playing here. Two brand names this year, Illinois, Tennessee, and I think we'll continue to have those kind of brands play. ESPN nationally televised games, so that really kind of ratchets up the excitement. And I think in nothing else, I think from a fan standpoint, we saw it this year. They just have fun in our city. So I think it's certainly worth the trip, and we'd love to have you and get you to be a fan of Nashville and come back for some of our other events.
Yeah, as someone who had been whose first time was in Nashville for the game, I certainly was very impressed, and I think I'll definitely be like many more times in the future, and especially if the game, regardless of who the two teams are, is as exciting as the first one I attended. I think I'm more than likely almost certain that it will be back. So thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'll try to make it a walk-off field goal for somebody to win for you every time, but that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it certainly is a lot of pressure, and with, of course, the unpredictability of the sport, of course, you can't guarantee it. So I totally get it. I totally get it for sure. And then the final question I had for you before I let you go, and thank you so much for your time, is just kind of talk about the new stadium project that's coming down the pipeline in 2027. Any exciting plans that you can reveal just about how the game will be impacted by the brand new stadium and just the overall environment around it?
Well, I think we're excited here in Nashville. I think, again, just kind of talking about our downtown, our ability to host major events, whether it's music festivals or major sporting events. I think we're ready with what the new stadium being enclosed will open up doors for us for Super Bowl, Final Four, CFP National Championship game, some events that we couldn't pursue because of either weather or an open air stadium like Final Four. So, we're really excited about it. And, I'm certainly the Music City Bowl will play a great part in the new stadium. College football will as well. But we're really excited about kind of what that first 5 to 10 years look like, and have the opportunity to really showcase our city with some of the largest sporting events in the country that we weren't able to pursue. And I think our city will be a great host of those events if we get the opportunity to do it.
For sure. And just to clarify, even with the new stadium, the Music City Bowl is still going to continue to be a yearly event, even with all the changes.
Absolutely.
That's outstanding here. Well, Scott, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciated that. I know you're really busy with all of the other things that you have going on, but thank you so much for taking a few minutes. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me, and Happy New Year, a few weeks late. So thanks for coming to the game.
You as well, and thank you again for having me, and I look forward to coming back sometime in the near future. I really appreciate it.
You got it. Thank
Have a good
you.
one. All right, so that was the interview with Scott Ramsey. Thanks again for him taking the time out of his busy schedule to talk to me. I really appreciate it. And with that said, that will do it for Bando's Breakdowns episode 74. There were no errors this week, so that's a good sign. It was a clean show, so we like to see that. And with that said, let's run through the final particulars before we get out of here. Again, you can listen to Bando's Breakdowns wherever you get your podcasts. You can watch the show on youtube.com/EDB Network, and please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe. And of course, you can follow the show across social media at Bando's Breakdown. Very important that you guys do so, because if you miss any episodes of the show or just any of the major topics that we discuss on an episode, they will always be there in clip form across social media in a timely manner. Usually I take you guys through the weekend and then we reset the following week as such with new and fresh content from the show. and episode 74 will be no different. So thanks again for all that you guys do to support the show. Very much appreciated. So with that said, this has been episode 74. My name is Zain Bando. This has been another edition of Bando's Breakdowns. I hope you enjoy all the football this upcoming weekend, including the conference championship games. If any of the 4 teams that you like are in the conference championship game, good luck to your respective teams. And until next week for episode 75, with more fun stuff to come, I will see you guys soon. Have a good one. And really, guys, take it all in because football is almost over. And when football is over, you're going to have some FOMO, and then we're going to get into college basketball, baseball, and if you're a football fanatic, you won't know what to do with yourself. So take advantage of these final few weeks, and until next week, I will see you guys soon. Have a good one, and enjoy everything that is to come this weekend in the world of sports, including the NFL. So until next week, see you guys soon, and cheers. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.